Hello there. What you're about to see is actually a shorter video from a much longer teaching where we're walking through every time the Hebrew word hesed shows up in the Bible. Hope you enjoy. But let's walk through this piece by piece. Yahweh, Yahweh, right? Just imagine, like, if you can just, like, close your eyes for a second and just imagine Moses standing there in the clefts of the rock, God passing in front of him. And for the first time, he hears God's voice, not like a distant voice, but it's close and it's personal and it's right there. And he proclaims his own name. He says, Yahweh, Yahweh, the compassionate and gracious God. Right? So this is how God identifies himself. What sets this God apart from all the other gods?
Right.
He's compassionate and gracious. What other God can you say is like that? Right? You look at the gods of, let's think from Moses' perspective, right? Yeah. The gods of Midian, the gods of the Canaanites, the gods of Egypt. None of them are compassionate or gracious.
Right.
That's the thing that sets the Judeo-Christian God apart from every other God. He's compassionate and gracious. You would expect God to be big. You would expect him to be righteous. You would expect him to know more than we know. You would expect him to be in more places than we can be at. You would not expect God to be compassionate or gracious. But the God of Israel is. And that's the first thing he uses to identify himself. I am the compassionate and gracious God. If you forget my name and you forget all the things I've done, all you need to do is say the compassionate and gracious God and you found me. Right? This is the God who he suffers with his people, compassion, right? He feels for his people.
Right.
And he gives them that which they don't deserve. Right? He is gracious. He's also slow to anger. Right? It doesn't mean that he doesn't have anger. It just means that he's very patient, right? He is long-suffering, right? He is willing to put up with a lot before he actually lashes out in anger. And we see this a lot. Even after he gives them the law, he still is very gracious with them, and he's still very slow to anger, just, very hesitant to actually inflict upon them the punishments from the law.
Right.
And then you get it, right? So compassionate, gracious, slow to anger. You see that all these words that we've seen, like the linguistic gravity of it, it's pulling us in and it's building up to this one moment. We've seen favor like a bajillion times already.
Yeah.
We've seen compassion a few times. We've seen mercy. We've seen grace a few times. And then finally we get it, abounding in chesed. Right? What do you think about that? What does God mean when he says he's abounding in chesed?
Well, all of those things that have constantly built up over this time, the compassion, the grace, the slow to anger, all of that, it's really culminated in this one word, hesed. But what is really cool is that it's not that it's just there. He says that it's abounding. There's a plentiful amount. It's not just a little bit to get you along. It is so much of it that
overflowing.
that you just cannot even handle how much there is, which is just really cool.
Yeah, I imagine one of those Thanksgiving cornucopias, or it's
it's
all the
pouring out.
Yes, it's just pouring out, right?
Yeah.
This is who God is.
Yeah.
He is abounding in hesed. According to Michael Card's definition, hesed is whenever you give someone something they have no right to expect. And that's exactly what God's identifying himself with. I am a God who is compassionate and gracious. Would you expect God to be that way? No. You would expect God to not care. Compassionate? That means you're suffering with somebody. That means you care. If there's this great big creator God who created all things, and just think about it. Let's just go by modern standards, right? 7+ billion people on one tiny planet, which is one of 9 or 8 planets, whatever, under one star, which is just one of 100+ billion stars in one galaxy, which is just one of 100 billion+ galaxies in the known universe, all of which God spans with his fingers. Would you expect God to care about one human being? No, but he does. Do we have a right to expect that? No. Would you expect him to give us that which we don't deserve? No. You wouldn't expect that. You would think he would give us exactly what we deserve. Slow to anger. Would you expect God to be slow to anger? No. Think about that. Think about how many bosses feel entitled to get angry with their employees for just not doing, just small things.
Yeah.
God is so much bigger, right? We owe everything to him. He is entitled to every single thing. And if we disobey in even the slightest infraction, we would expect him to get very angry. Because he's like, who do you think you are to disobey me? That's what we would expect.
Right.
But he doesn't do that. Instead, he's patient with us. And so he says, yeah, I'm abounding in hesed. This is who I am. I just show hesed, and I'm constantly giving people what they have no right to expect. I give them compassion. I give them grace. I'm slow to anger. I'm patient with them. I love them. We have no right to expect that. And that's why hesed is so important. That's why the term itself is so crucial, because if you understand what hesed is, specifically in how it relates to God, you will understand the gospel. You will understand the Bible. That's why this is so important, because God says, this is my key attribute. I constantly give people what they have no right to expect. And if you view God under that lens, everything makes sense. Because God is constantly doing the exact opposite of what you'd expect him to do. I would
say, we even see, David in the Psalms, he contemplates this idea whenever he's like, who is man that you would be mindful of him? It's the same idea. You are this, amazing, magnificent, huge God. Who am I? I'm just this tiny little ant you could crush with your thumb.
Yeah.
It's why would you be mindful of me? Why would you show me this hesed and this grace and this mercy and this compassion? Why is it? And then that goes back to really a question that we've talked about on this channel before. Why does God choose to love us?
Yep.
It's just something that we just don't understand, and it's ingrained in who God is.
Yep.
But that's really encapsulated in what hesed is.
Yeah, and it's perplexing because nowadays we have this very entitled mindset where we just think that we are the most amazing people, and sometimes we think we just deserve God's love. And even whenever you feel undeserving of it, we have these weird theologies where we try to encourage people and be like, no, you do deserve it. No, you don't. I'm just going to say it right here and right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll lose me some subscribers. You do not deserve God's love.
No.
But you have it. That's the surprising thing.
Right.
That's the whole point. You're not deserving. You're not worthy. You shouldn't expect it. But he gives it, and that's what makes it so crazy. We think that we're entitled to all these things, and we suffer from pride and narcissism and all this stuff because we have made God smaller than he is, and we've made ourselves bigger than we are. But if you actually adopt the biblical worldview of who we are and who God is, we would recognize that God makes no sense. But he is. He is real. But logically, he makes no sense to the human mind because he's way too big to care for somebody so small as us. Yet he has made us just lower than the heavenly beings, and he has put us over all creation. What the heck? This God is compassionate. He's gracious. He's slow to anger. We have no right to expect that. And we're fools if we think that we do. And that is what God's declaring right here. He is saying, this is what sets me apart from all other gods. This is what makes me the one true God, because you can't make this up. If you're making up, just go look at all the just go find a random fictional book set in a fantasy world and go see if you can find a person who has this much power yet who is this gracious and perfect to individuals. You won't find it, right? This God cannot be made up because he defies human reason. He is a God who for some reason has ultimate power yet doesn't abuse it. And instead, he is gracious to those who have no power, and he serves the people with the least power. That's what's so confusing, and that's why when you get to Jesus dying, he is the ultimate form of hesed. And it makes no sense. If you don't understand hesed, you don't understand the gospel, because Jesus is going to show up, and you're going to be like, why would God do it this way? Why did he have to die? But if you understand hesed, you realize that's who God is. There's no other way this could have gone. He gives you what you have no right to expect. If God demands that sinners have to die, you would never expect that he would become a man and die on behalf of sinners. You would have no right to expect that. But if you know that God is somebody who does something which you have no right to expect, all of a sudden it makes sense.
You read a verse, you sing a hymn, the money's in the plate. Sundays you mark out for him, but even then you show up late. You bought the shirt, you wear the cross, but sin throughout the week. For 30 shekels and a noose, you kiss him on the cheek.